Yo, good afternoon, good evening, even. Welcome to today's stream. I think this is number 7. We've already got Phantom Wolf saying hello. So I'd like to introduce everyone to Kieran. He's an artist on one of our fine art programs at the university. So Kieran, if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Kieran Crew. I'm a mature fine art student, sort of coming back to education a little later in life, and enjoying it a lot more, I think, for coming back to it through choice. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the stuff I like to create, I guess, and hope you enjoy what you see.
Great, and we're going to have a little look at your Instagram in a second. But you mentioned there that you've come back into education. How long have you been at the university now? Is this your second year?
It is, yes. My second year now. On my second year, thoroughly enjoying it. You know, it's nice to get the old grey matter working again and thinking in a different way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's great. That's great to hear. So what we'll do is we will jump into the next screen and take a little look at your Instagram. So let's get that now. There we go. And let's bring that up. So we've got your Instagram there in the bottom corner of the screen. So we're going to have a little scroll through and let you sort of tell us a little bit about what you do, really, and maybe the process or just a little bit of background about some of these pieces. So I'll open them up, and then I think you posted this one recently, didn't you? Is it today?
Yeah, it was today. And it's something that we've got in the studio between about 3 or 4 of us contribute to it. When we're sort of getting like artist block, the equivalent of writer's block, we just go on to, it's almost like a wooden door. We go on and add layers to it and create, and it just gives us ideas of techniques, different things we can use just to spark a bit of creativity if we're stuck for something to do, rather than just sort of sit twiddling your thumbs hoping for something to magically appear. We kind of just jump on and do a bit, and it's good fun to see how it just grows.
It sounds like a fantastic idea. I mean, there's something that a lot of artists struggle with sometimes, is that white page, isn't it, that sort of block that's coming in. We have got the chat sort of kicked off quite quick. Rhubarb, I think one of the questions there is, what are you going to paint tonight? We'll get onto that in a second. And then we've got a few hellos from Kiss My Artichoke, Beth Parry Makes, and Emma Ford Art as well. So let's jump into this one. So do you want to tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, I'm sort of exploring how when architecture and industry sort of goes to waste, how nature reclaims it, and it's came about from last semester. I was doing a project called Wunderkammer, which is curiosity cabinets, and initially I was making a cabinet to hold the curiosities, but as I started making, I got carried away with the whole process, and the actual cabinet became the curiosity. And then the transition sort of happened after Christmas. We were sort of moving on. I was thinking, how can I develop this? And I wanted to bring it sort of full life cycle, because I've been thinking about the initial lockdown and how quickly nature had responded, with pollution and everything, and how quick nature is to sort of regenerate when it's given a chance. And I kind of like seeing the objects where, you'll see a tree growing out of a gutter and things like that. It's just really resilient. So I'm sort of exploring that through painted sketches at the moment, with a thought to maybe making some models of that.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. I think we'd certainly be interested in seeing that as your process goes along. Will you be posting that on Instagram as well, I take it?
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, it's not one of those Instagrams where I'm constantly spamming, because I'm not the fastest worker in the world. I'm quite methodical in the way that I work. But I do like to update when I reaching milestones, just to sort of chart where I've been as well. It's always good to reflect on where you're at and the progress that you're making.
Yeah, because there's a couple. The next one as well is that from the same sort of.
Yeah, it's the same sort of. I kind of like how the car's rusting away and it's seen its life cycle, but then nature's repurposing it. It's becoming the home for the tree, and it's becoming entombed in that. It's fascinating to see how we as the human race sort of take away from nature, but nature claims back. It's really good.
Well, it's interesting. It's really capturing that the essence of nature, taking back what was initially theirs. So, and this is Regent Street, isn't it? This is the coffee shop. I noticed when I went in a few weeks ago that there's a sort of pop-up art gallery space. Is that what's going on there? Is it?
As part of our education program, I do a thing called Creative Futures, which gets us thinking about how we ought to operate as professional artists beyond university. And as part of that, we are putting on our own exhibition. And it's been sort of a fun trial in how to do that with social distancing and such. It's so we've put it in an actual space, but we've also put it out there in the virtual environment by having the exhibition on Instagram.
Wow, okay. Has it got its own Instagram account, or is it just that you're all posting on your own individual accounts?
We are posting on individual accounts, but it does have its own Instagram handle as well, which I've completely forgotten off the top of my head. I'm sure
there may be someone in the chat that may know what that is. If they want to post that, feel free to do so, and we'll read that out. Hopefully the chat bot won't block it, but certainly let me know if it does, and I will post that out. We got a comment from Kiss My Artichoke. Just give you a follow on Instagram. Love the nature reclaiming imagery, and the portraits are fantastic.
Really appreciate that. It's always nice to get that feedback, to make sure you're sort of going in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I think that's one of the I mention this pretty much every stream. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this is to build confidence and also get you out there. Because we have so many great artists. Well, all of our students are great artists, and we need to get you out there and the rest of the world to see what we can see and how good you are. Funkatron's just jumped in the chat as well. Yo, what's good? What's the Insta? I just joined. Okay. So I think you've got a couple of followers just off showing off your Instagram right now. All right, so we'll have a couple more pieces and then we'll find out what you're gonna draw. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, it's kind of one of the things that got me enthusiastic about art again. Is probably going back about 6 years ago or so. Went on a family trip to Walt Disney World in Florida, and in Disney Springs area, they've got Art of Disney store there, and it completely sort of changed my mindset with art, because I'd always been of the thinking that art has to be formal and Tate inspired and things like that. And there was this store with fine art, but completely related to Disney. And I became enchanted by it, to be honest. It was something that really captured my imagination. And I've kind of set a goal for myself as an artist, whenever it may be. But at one point, I'd like to get at least one piece of art featured in that gallery. So I've set myself the challenge of doing that. So every now and then, I'll dip out of what I'm doing ordinarily painting, and I'll do something Disney inspired.
Wow, okay. I think that's something that people often forget with Disney, the amount of artists that work for that company. Whether it's animators, visual effects artists, or even fine artists, a lot of illustrators, graphic designers, pretty much near enough every sort of art discipline. Because I know Walt Disney used to make, that's where the Animal Kingdom come from, is the animators had to go out and draw the animals all the time. So it is, I think people often forget that there's a lot of artists that work for that company. Right, well, let's have a look at this. Tell us a little bit about this piece and then we'll jump in.
That's my daughter Ellie saying that.
Oh.
Come on, mate, off you go now.
There we go.
Yeah, this piece is it's quite a large scale piece. It was portrait of Kurt Cobain. Prior to starting the course at uni, I spent years being afraid of doing portraits. I don't know why, but the thought of doing it scared me in case it didn't bear quite likeness or I felt uncomfortable with it. But it's something that I wanted to do, and it's kind of where I want to go. Finally, really, I see myself in the future as being a portrait artist. So I set myself the challenge because I've been listening to a lot of Nirvana throughout lockdown, which I hadn't done for a number of years. And I felt inspired just to sort of paint Kurt Cobain from the Unplugged in New York set. And I thought it'd be quite a challenging painting to do because there's such rich values and colours to work with. And just set myself the challenge of doing it. I mean, as you see it there is how it is at the moment, but I still don't think it's finished. I will go back into it at some point.
That's interesting that you're gonna revisit it, because it's kind of like that point of, I think a lot of artists struggle with that, or what point is finished. And you're taking the plunge to come out and do, out of your comfort zone, to have a go. I think that's really commendable and really, really good.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's just something I feel that, it's a sort of calling that I want to visit the portraiture. And with this, I've just done it for my own sort of personal enjoyment. So in and around the actual uni stuff, I dip in and out of it. And it's been quite a nice way to learn how to do portraiture in that I can take time away from it and then come back to it fresh and reevaluate. And it's nice to have that sort of breathing space to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a couple of messages coming in from the chat. One of them from Electo420. What's your favourite Nirvana album?
I'd probably say In Utero is my favourite Nirvana album. It's just, it's a very raw, genuine album. In Utero.
And we've got quite a lot of love for Ellie there. Hello, Ellie. Hi, hey, Ellie from Beth Parry Makes and Kiss My Artichoke. And Funkatron as well. Heyo. Electo put yes to that answer. And also Funkatron agreed that album slaps. There you go. Kiss My Artichoke, brilliant album. So, you've obviously got good taste as well. So let's jump back and ask. Rhubarb asked the question right at the beginning. What are you going to paint for us tonight?
Tonight I'm going to be painting my chocolate Labrador Buddy, because I've been promising my daughter Ellie for a long time that I'm going to do her a painting, because my son Jamie's got a few in his bedroom that he's collected off me over the years, and Ellie, bless her, hasn't got many. So I've been promising her, and this is the perfect opportunity to do it for her. Brilliant.
So just talk us through what have you done up to this point to get the canvas as it is right now?
Up to this point, I just put a pink ground on, and the reason for doing so, I don't work off a white canvas. I just prefer it shows off the colours better. Say if I'm using a white, it'll give a better, brilliant white. Than if it's on the white canvas, and it just helps get the tones working better. And all I've done is sketched in pencil the initial outlines of what I want to do. Is kind of a basic outline for me to work from, and then I just sort of dive in and just sort of layer with the acrylic paints.
Okay. And what paints are you using? Last week we seen Winston use Pound Shop paint, so the pressure's on.
I tend to use different types of acrylic paints. I've got the System 3 by De La Rowney. I quite like the consistency of it. It's not too thin, but it's quite buttery as well. And the Winsor & Newton professional acrylic. I use them predominantly because they're affordable. They're not the cheapest acrylics, but they're the balance between quality and affordability.
Cool. And brushes?
Brushes, I'm currently using Royal & Langeneckel. They're quite cheap, readily available, but I find they've just got a nice texture to the brush. They last quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, I have got some more expensive brushes by Rosemary and Co, which are fantastic, but I tend to save them for special occasions, like when I'm using the oil paints.
Right, okay. And what oil paints do you tend to go with?
Oil paint wise, oh crikey, I'm trying to think now. So I've not used them in a while.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Michael Hardy. Sorry,
Okay.
I couldn't think of the name there. Yeah, Michael Hardy. I tend to use that because the pigments he uses are fantastic and they hold up really well.
Mm-hmm. And I think one question I'd like to go back to is you're painting a dog for your daughter tonight. What did you paint for your son?
Well, he's got a painting of Buddy,
Okay.
but he's also got a couple of other animal paintings that I did, because initially I started painting animals because I like the portraiture, I like nature as well, but it was the sort of I don't know, it was the gateway drug into getting into proper portraiture, I guess. It's you can't go too far wrong with an animal, whereas if it's a person, it needs to look dead like them.
I don't know. You said it's kind of fur's also a scary thought, I suppose.
Yeah.
Getting fur right is always is a big one. Funkatron's put doggo in the chat and emoji with love hearts in the eyes. All right, so we'll let you get on and we'll ask you some questions as we go along. So if people while Kieran is painting, feel free to throw some questions in the chat and we'll pester you as you paint. That's going to be our new tagline, I think. Pester you while you paint.
Pester while you paint. I like that. It's good. I've already got the paint set up, so it shouldn't be too long before I dive into it.
So Electo's if you could choose any one/thing, living or dead, human or beast, real or fictitious, what would you choose to paint?
Ooh. Crikey, that's a good one. There's not anything in particular. I like charismatic things, something that's got sort of character. So I guess a grizzled old face would be really good to sort of to do, something that tells a story itself. But, I mean, I have got in mind at the moment because I quite like following MMA, mixed martial arts. So I was going to do a series of favourite fighters, really, because they've got their sort of grizzled, battle-worn look to them and stuff like that. So I think at some point I'm going to dive into that because it's going to give me a chance to experiment with the style as well and sort of find my own niche within portraiture.
Absolutely, and Electo's put a brilliant answer. Love that. Funkatron's asked, what's your process when it comes to hair and fur?
It used to be that I'd lay down a base to it and then go in and stipple and go very, very fine. But at the moment, I'm tending to just sort of feel it out and just put layers on, really. Try and find the depth of tones and colours and then refine it from there and then pick out highlights because I think that's the key to making fur, feathers, things like that look real, is where you pick out the highlights on them. It's sort of how the light falls on it. I think that's my big obsession with painting, to be honest, is always trying to find the light source and where the light is, and it is a real key into sort of bringing the painting alive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tricky, isn't it? It's kind of if you don't quite get that light source right, or you've got some highlights in a place that probably wouldn't, it really draws your eye to it, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And Funkatron's put nice, so I think you've helped somebody out there. And Funkatron's put, not gonna lie, I struggle with light and dark. So it's tricky. It is tricky to get it right, isn't it? So when you're setting this canvas up, do you decide where the light source is going to be, or do you use anything in particular to sort of identify where that's coming from?
I generally, at the beginning of when I start painting, especially with the Kurt Cobain one we talked about, is study the picture quite a lot before I actually put the paint down and remember where the light source is coming from. So, for instance, with this one of Buddy, my dog, the light's coming from sort of right at the top here, and there'll be highlights coming across the right-hand side of the painting. So I've got to remember that, where the highlights are, not to try and conflict that by putting highlights on the left-hand side where they wouldn't naturally be.
Yeah.
So, it's remembering to put shade on that side and light on that side. And I think if you can, there's nothing to stop you putting a sticker on the canvas or whatever, so long as you can remember where the light source is coming from. And I think it's an important thing, because it could be central, it could be high up, it could be low lit and illuminating features underneath. But it's just trying to remember and stick to that one point of light source. Especially if you're painting from life, because that light source will change throughout the painting, which is a massive challenge.
So do you ever do any digital painting, or is it all traditional paint on canvas?
I really want to get into digital painting, because I think it's a phenomenal tool. It's great. I'll say there's artists that I admire, contemporary artists, like this guy out there at the moment, Greg Crayola Simpkins. I'd advise anybody to follow him on Instagram and watch his time lapses on YouTube. It's phenomenal, but he'll use his digital drawings, to sort of source out where he's going to put the light, because he creates sort of wonderful mystical paintings with all weird and wonderful creatures that he's made up in his head. But it just looks so lifelike, and it's a great tool. It really is a fantastic tool for setting up your paintings.
That's one of the reasons I ask, because it is kind of, you can cheat a little bit with digital painting. It's kind of you can pull in a light source, or you can even pull in a sort of 3D model that's already got the shadows and everything else in it, and then paint over the top of it. I suppose it's a little bit tricky when you've got to sketch it on canvas first.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea as well, as you can play around with sources, so you can lay an image on top of another image and create, a digital sort of rendition, because it's hard, some artists, myself included, I find it hard to paint stuff from imagination. So if I can actually compose something digitally beforehand, then it works far better, So sometimes I'll use Photoshop to compose how I'd like a painting to look and use that as the reference.
All right, okay, that's interesting. It's just I noticed you sort of looked at the screen a second ago. Did you notice the flames come up then?
Yeah.
That's Winston Gomez 9. Thanks for the follow. He's checking up on you. He's checking out the competition. Electo's put, love a good bonsai.
Oh, so, that's my son Jamie's, but I went watering it and keeping it alive.
I didn't do a very good job with the one we had.
Mr. Miyagi's lessons, and you can't go wrong.
That's it. I guess my artichoke's put, that's a really good tip with a sticker as light. And Electo, do you find painting therapeutic?
Absolutely. That's how I got back into painting. I used to be in the Air Force in a previous life, and I served in Iraq in 2003. And subsequently got post-traumatic stress disorder. And I did a residential stay at Combat Stress, which is a fantastic charity helping veterans overcome PTSD. And that's where I rediscovered my love for painting. On a 2-week residential course there, all I did for probably 10 hours a day in between the little counselling sessions and things was paint. And I absolutely loved it, and it is meditative. I recommend anybody do it. Doesn't really matter what your level of painting is or how good or bad you think you are. It's actually the process of doing it it's so good for the soul.
That's really interesting. I mean, we talked a couple of times now over the last few streams about mental health and painting and art and health, and there's there's definitely something that needs to be utilized more and encouraging more people to just have a go, try stuff out, painting, things like that. That's really good. It's really good that they helped you out and stuff. It's like,
yeah, it's a phenomenal charity, but it's like, yeah, just I'd encourage anybody just to let go. Don't worry about what it's going to look like. Just enjoy the process. You know, a lot of the time now, I used to, when I was younger, I loved art in school, but I used to be always worrying about the outcome because, you know, is it going to be graded this, is it going to be graded that? And my time at Combat Stress taught me not to worry about the outcome. It's the actual process and enjoying that. You know, the outcome's just an added bonus. And I think my art came on leaps and bounds just through letting go and trying, not being scared to try.
And Electo's put, thank you for your service, and I couldn't agree more. So
I really appreciate that. Thank you. At the end of the day, it was a job.
Yeah.
There wasn't many job prospects around Wrexham, and I was unfortunately not mature enough to do university at a young age. Hence, coming back to it now.
Yeah. Winston's put, do you do any work for Help for Heroes?
I haven't done any work for Help for Heroes, but it is another very invaluable charity.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of great forces charities, Help for Heroes being one, Combat Stress, as I've mentioned. They've got a very sort of fond place in my heart, but the Royal British Legion as well are fantastic in the help that they offer. It was them that helped me to know about Combat Stress and know the help that was there, really. So I can't say enough about them. They're a long-standing institution, but out there offering real help.
I think what we're hoping for with this channel, once it starts growing in numbers and things like that as well, is charity streams is something that I'm really keen to get off the ground. I think we do a lot in the university, various different charities, raising money and stuff. And I think COVID's really knocked that this year. Not being able to do the usual cake sales and whatever else that they do around the university and things. So I think, because like Winston mentioned last week about donating his painting to an auction to raise money for a particular charity that he's engaged with. And I think that's something that we should definitely look into is charities that are sort of directly linked to students as well. It makes it a whole sort of just worth it in general, because they've helped somebody that we know directly. Not saying other charities and stuff as well.
Absolutely. I mean, there are going to be so many charities that are needing that help, especially after COVID, because it's not just businesses that are taking a hit. It'll be the charities as well and their funding. It's nice to give something back if we can. Yeah,
absolutely. Kiss My Artichokes put, thank you for your honesty. I'm glad you found something to help. And Electo's put, have you ever thought about taking your art into the direction of helping ex-soldiers like yourself?
Absolutely, yeah. That is something that's sort of at the forefront of my mind. I mean, I did do art therapy whilst I was at Combat Stress, and I found, that was a very interesting concept, because it's less based on what you're producing, but the why you're producing. But it really helps with a lot of people. So it is something that is close to my heart and stuff. And I don't know whether I'd like to maybe do a veterans group where it's just a painting group where people can come along, drop in, have a chat, and it's like-minded people. Because you find a lot when you've left the forces, you become very indoctrinated and you don't necessarily realise it, and it's quite a hard transition back to civilian life afterwards. And it'd be nice to sort of offer that sort of camaraderie back to some other veterans, and
shared experiences as well, isn't it?
It's a mutual beneficial thing, really. It's nice to know you're not alone.
Absolutely. And Electo's put, I think you would be brilliant at it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Winston has put, it's fantastic to watch you work. Are you enjoying this process?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of being in the studio in uni, because it's that we talk to each other. We'll have music playing or something, and it's fun. It's nice, you're working away and you've got people to talk to, and it's there is something enjoyable about sort of sharing it as well.
And Funkatron's put, what's your favourite paint to use? Are you strictly acrylic or do you use oils too? I think you answered that earlier on, didn't you, with saying that you've got particular brushes for oils. And so which would you say was your favourite?
I'd say probably most comfortable with acrylics, because I was having this conversation with Winston a week or so ago. I think a lot of people tend to stay true to oils because it's what the old masters did. But at the same time, technology's moved on, and the acrylics offer the same sort of qualities, but they can dry quicker. It allows you to get more done in shorter periods of time. So I kind of like that aspect of it, but also there is an element of I do like to work with oils because there is a nice feel to them on the canvas. But for convenience and for the qualities that of quick drying and layering, I tend to mostly use acrylics.
Interesting. It's always interesting to ask that question about whether people prefer sort of, the old masters of, it can be. People often think that the art world can be quite sort of not stuffy, but kind of, it can't be for everybody. Whereas I think Winston last week was talking about art's for everybody.
Absolutely.
And just new methods, bringing in different things, different ways of working, can often just watching you doing this and watching the students I've been doing these streams and stuff. I always say this, we don't get to see this process. Lifting the lid on this kind of thing is really interesting, and even we pick up a few things. Oh, that's interesting how you've layered that. It's interesting that you've gone to that bit first.
There's no dark magic to it, and that's the beauty of social media and things. It's taking the mystery away. As I said before, Greg Simpkins goes by his graffiti name of Crayola. His time lapses show you all the techniques and stuff, and I've learned so much just from watching him paint, and it's fantastic. There are things that he does to thin the acrylics. He wets the canvas and things, and and it makes blending a lot easier, which I probably would have discovered it at some point, but it would have taken me a lot longer to discover.
Mm-hmm. There's something about watching other artists as well that is also therapeutic. It's kind of
absolutely, yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic for me. I get to sit here, watch you paint, and ask you as many questions as I want, like why have you just done that, or what are you doing this for, And Electo's put in the chat, 100% art is for everybody. And Funkatron, have you ever used a wet palette?
I have used a wet palette, yeah. And I like that because it does stop everything drying out, and you can go away and come back to stuff. But what I do prefer about not using it though is I'm quite impatient. I want to be adding layers and building up different layers to give light and shade. So quick drying acrylics really sort of work for me, whereas some people find it scary because they dry so quickly. And they prefer the fact that oils are more forgiving as you can rework. I'm quite the opposite. I find oils that bit more scary because they do take a long time to dry, and my instinct is to jump back in and keep adding layers. So it's a sort of reverse challenge for me than what I tend to think most people are like.
And so, got a couple of questions for you about sort of fine art and things like that. So why did you choose fine art over the other subjects that you could have taken it?
I mean, I guess I'm at a stage of life where I'm doing it for enjoyment's sake. as much as I hope to have a career at the end of it where I can sell my art. And I wanted to learn more skills. I wanted to improve the way I paint, the way I think about painting. So it was kind of a logical choice, really, to sort of go down the fine art route. And I mean, there was a particular lecture that I had with John McClanahan last year where he told us about washes and how to, glaze and put different washes on, and it transformed some of the paintings I was doing because it can add depth to a painting.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about that technique, and that's kind of that's what I'm all about. I want to learn, I want to grow as an artist all the time.
So how have you found that then, with the lockdown and COVID and everything else? I mean, I always assume that artists troll around galleries on weekends and everything else. Have you missed that? Is that something that you did, or?
My weekends are pretty much taken up. I'm a football coach as well, so my weekends are taken up coaching an under-11s football side. But I find the beauty of modern technology is I can troll online, and I spend quite a bit of time online doing different things, and then I find something that I really like and hook into, and then I'll go and visit it in person. It sort of cuts through a lot of the wandering around the gallery, through the stuff that doesn't necessarily connect with you.
Yeah.
But then you can just cut to sort of the artists that really inspire you. And I kind of like that in a sense. I mean, and through lockdown, it's kind of been the only way to view things. But I like how it's made the art world sit up and become more innovative. And, there's been 3D galleries popping up and stuff. There's a good one at T-Power at the moment, which is fantastic. That sort of 3D virtual tour of the gallery, and I think it's fantastic. How we've had to adapt.
Yeah, it certainly cuts down with the queues and stuff, doesn't it? I think so. Have you ever found anything online and you thought to yourself, "I want to see that in real life," and then headed over to the gallery? I mean, obviously post lockdown, or do you just prefer to see it that way?
I just think for convenience sake, I like seeing it that way. But you do always wonder how it translates in real life. And I guess the example that I'll use is I was never blown away by the work of Turner. It looked very nice, very twee. And that was until I saw it in the Tate Gallery when I was probably 17.
Yeah.
And I was amazed at, considering it being painted for over 100 years, just the integrity of how well everything stood up, how well he considered everything. And photographs hadn't done it justice, to my mind. And it's the same with Francis Bacon. You'll see an image, and my favourite piece of his is another one that I saw in the Tate in London, was one he's done for a portrait, and it was just so haunting. It stopped me in my tracks in the gallery, and I was looking at it for probably 35 minutes. I couldn't move. I was just transfixed with it. It was amazing, and I don't think the images do that justice. The image doesn't, although it is good, it doesn't stop you in your tracks in the same sort of way. Yeah. And the same with Andy Warhol's Electric Chair. If you see it, it's just another pop art piece online. But to see it in person, the size of it and the way that he set it out, it's quite a moving piece.
Has there ever been anything that you've seen online, then gone see it in person and thought, oh, that's not as good as I thought it was?
No, that's the funny thing. No, I actually haven't, and I think it's because you can see extra layers when you're actually in person. And I mean, even when it's not as you thought you'd see it, it can make you appreciate how they've actually done it and how it shows from the photo and to how it transitions as a actual functional piece.
Because there was I asked that question. I always ask the opposite question once you say you like something. But because it was a similar sort of thing. I went to the Louvre, and you have to head over to see the Mona Lisa and stuff. But I was just kind of shocked at how small it was and how you couldn't get anywhere near it because of the crowds. But the stuff that was outside that Da Vinci had done outside that room was just so breathtaking and amazing that you just stood there for ages just looking at it. And there's something about it, isn't it, that you just can't see it. And the same with the is it the Night Watch in Amsterdam? It's that kind of, you just, and the sheer size of it, you're just so transfixed by it.
And I guess when I was younger, I'd think to myself, well, what's so great about that, or why are they classed as a master? And there's always a reason they are, and I think the reason is because how great they are when you do see them in the flesh, because it doesn't always transfer. And I think that's why, as good as it is and as convenient as it is to see things online, it'll never completely substitute actually going and seeing the physical piece in person.
Absolutely. We've got a couple of messages in the chat. Electo's put, who do you support? I think that's relating to the football coaching. That could be a controversial question. We could end up losing a lot of viewers. But if you want to answer that, you can do.
Lifelong Liverpool Football Club fan. There was no choice in it. The family are all Liverpool supporters, and that was it. It was already predetermined, just like it has been for my son and daughter.
I think they like that anyway. They put a little emoji with a little party face. Kiss Marchuk's put, I think it's great viewing things online, but I really enjoy going to see work in person. It definitely hits different. Electo's put, with you saying that, seeing a Turner in real life was a better experience than a photo of it. Do you think digital art is capable of creating the same feeling as a real painting?
Absolutely. 100%. I think there's limitless possibilities and depth that you can add to digital art, and you can zoom in, you can work finer and things like that, and they each have their own merits. And I don't like when people say that digital art isn't real art, it's a cheats method. I don't agree with that, because you have to master that method, and it's the same for any art. It's the hours that you put in dictate the quality of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my side of the school is more the digital side of things, and when you say digital art, it's such a broad sweep. When you think, if you look at some game environments, I mean, the detail that goes into these things, like if you look at the Ghosts of Tsushima and things like that, if you look at concept art, and there's so much depth that goes into these things, and so much detail and intricacy. But yeah, it's sometimes it can be breathtaking as well. Funkatron's put, to Kiss My Artchoke, agreed. I like seeing brush strokes that you can learn a lot from, the little things like that. Kiss My Artchoke's put, the Night Watch in the Reich is breathtaking. I think the space in which the art is held has an impact. Yeah, absolutely. It's a massive room that you walk into. And I don't know, they mentioned about it being slashed with a sword as well, but it's been expertly repaired, so you're constantly trying to look for it, but it's just you can't see it.
Yeah, but I kind of like that. I heard a conversation the other week, where it's on, I think it was an online thing, where there's a bit of a debate going on, and somebody had said that curators are failed artists. I totally disagree, because it's an art in itself, creating the perfect setting to bring out the best in a piece of art. In all honesty, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, because it's just the sheer sort of care of these things as well, and I mean, even the people who go in and sit there with their sort of easel and try and replicate, because they're learning the process and whatever else, it's still it's a whole learning process, isn't it, as well as
Yeah, you know,
the whole thing.
people say, "Oh, it's easy to copy." I disagree. It's the most unforgiving sort of format
Yeah,
to do, because you're going to get found out if you don't copy it to.
yeah. Winston's put, "Go on, the Red Men." Beth Parry makes good man. Electo, who do you want to win tonight?
I'm not interested. Liverpool aren't involved, yeah.
I'm not a clue. My extent of football knowledge is that Ryan Reynolds and his mates just bought Wrexham. So yeah. And then Winston's put, "Is there any painting you long to see?" So is there anything out there that you'd love to see in person?
Crikey. I'd like to see some of John Singer Sargent's work, because I've never seen any of his work in person. I'm leaning towards portraiture. You know, he's probably, to me, the king of using light and shade to enhance his work, and I'd love to see that in person, and that's something that's on my to-do list, definitely. No particular painting, but just in general, his work is something that I'm desperate to see.
Just if there was an exhibition right now, you'd be there.
Oh yeah. With bells on, absolutely.
Cool. Emma Ford art has put, "I agree, digital art is real art." So there we go. And then Funkatron to Emma Ford has put, "Agreed." So yeah, it's always a huge debate. It's always the thing. I've tried a few times to get sort of traditional artists to have a go at a Cintiq, because now obviously with Photoshop and Clip Studio and Coral Paint and all them sort of things, you can they replicate a lot of brushes, a lot of techniques, and obviously, you know, people gravitate towards traditional over digital because it's personal taste. So I think it's
still got to have the fundamentals in place, though, because like they say with the Cintiq, you're using oils, acrylics. You've got to understand how they move and how they flow to actually render the image correctly. So, you know, it definitely is art.
So in terms of your experience at the university, how are you finding your art experience at Glendale?
Do you know what? I'm really enjoying it, because we've got a great mix of people on the course I'm on. I've dropped really, really lucky. I feel really fortunate, because, you know, we bounce off each other and we inspire each other all the time, and it's great. You know, there's never a moment where somebody isn't helping another person or giving somebody ideas and, you know, critiquing each other positively. It's great, and, you know, to that end, I want to try and create, come the end of university, I want to maybe have a studio where there's a number of like-minded artists working together, just because it's been so beneficial to work with so many good people who push you to produce better work.
It's this word's been bandied about quite a bit into when we've talked about the university. It's community. And Electo's put, "That studio idea is brilliant." I think just having that sort of interaction and being able to bounce off each other, and I think that's why we go on about group critiques and see, you know, getting each other to talk about your work and standing up and doing progress pitches and things like that, and just being able to critique your work and talk about it and ultimately get feedback, not just from your lecturers but from your peers as well, because ultimately they're going to be out there in the world with you once you've finished.
Oh, absolutely. And it's good, because I think art can sometimes be viewed as a solitary sort of venture.
Yeah.
But I think you benefit far more if it isn't. If, you know, if it's a shared sort of passion and it's a group thing, then, you know, it's going to broaden your horizons and expand your knowledge base far more.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
You're going to develop at a faster rate and learn things you wouldn't necessarily learn.
Pick up tips from each other, share experiences. It's all valuable, isn't it? So, what's been the hardest thing for you to transition back into education as a mature student?
I guess the hardest thing for me is having a family and balancing and making sure that I set time aside for assignments, that I have enough time to actually dedicate to painting or making.
Yeah.
Because as an older person, I have to prioritize doing things like, the kids have got clubs, I have to pick them up from school, drop them off. We do things as a family at the weekends, and as I said, coach football as well. So I think the hardest transition for me is finding a balance where I'm committed enough to getting work done, but also I'm not neglecting the family as a result.
Absolutely, work-life balance is key, isn't it? It's key for any time
Absolutely.
that you're working, or whether it's even creating time for yourself to do art and things like that as well.
Yeah.
So, what we talked about a couple of artists and things that you would like to see, galleries and things like that. So, in terms of current influences and references that you use in your practice at the moment, do you have any of those? Anybody particular at the moment?
Yeah, there's a number of artists, and I'll be honest, I quite like to look at more sort of contemporary, sort of up and coming artists, and they're not necessarily artists who work in the same field as what I'm doing or interested in, but comes to mind is British artist Craig Davidson. Makes absolutely phenomenal works that show children playing and the heroes that they aspire to be. So in the background it'll be Star Wars characters, and in the foreground it'll be a kid holding a mop handle, pretending it's a lightsaber and stuff like that. It's like I find it, but it's how he renders the paint that fascinates me. I've mentioned him before, Greg Crayola Simpkins, very inspiring. Another one is Audrey Kawasaki. I find her work is amazing. She paints on wood, but with very thin washes, and it's incredible because it's so clean, and that's complete opposite to how I work, but it's a challenge to try and take elements of what she does because she's so light with the touch. And it's quite interesting that a lot of the artists that I do admire are not necessarily, as I say, creating stuff that I create myself. But I think that sort of lends to having my own sort of style within the genre of portraiture and stuff, because I'm not trying to replicate any one person. Like I say, Singer Sargent's probably the greatest inspiration for me as a portrait artist because of just of his use of light and shade and his depth of colour. It's phenomenal.
So would you say that has directly then inspired the stuff that you're producing for your assessments?
To be honest, I've gone in a completely different direction, and purely because I view the time at university as a time to challenge myself and do things that I wouldn't ordinarily do.
Right.
And even doing stuff like the Wunderkammer, where I've got into sculpting more, it gets you thinking differently about how you approach art, and even painting, because you're seeing things with different perspectives and a different way of working. So it's all beneficial. But it's quite interesting that I've been doing mostly this year sculpting, but my passion is painting, and what I love to view are paintings. But at the same time, I do love the architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright. I love the skyscrapers of New York, things like that. And it's been a chance to sort of indulge that sort of side of.
Yeah, I think that's really what is great about art school, is that you can just come in and try stuff, push yourself, try different things, make mistakes, and just ultimately experiment with everything and anything and see what fits. So many students who walk through the door who come in with a set mind of, oh, I'm going to be this, I'm going to do this, and walk out the other end completely different.
Yeah, and I think the easy thing for me to do would be to walk in and say, right, I'm doing painting because that's what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I don't think that necessarily would benefit my experience of learning, because you need to push yourself to sort of experience all these other areas and become a bit more multifaceted. And whatever you're doing within art, you can relate it back to your chosen area or where you feel most comfortable. But I like the fact that, you know, you can almost multitask.
And in the chat, Electo's put, would you go into further education after your BA, given your positive experience?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So you would actually go. So I think that's for people who are watching. Further education would be college, so sixth form teaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something I'd discount, because I've drawn such a lot off, and you know, it's not just blowing smoke because you're a tutor, but the tutors that we've got at Glyndŵr are phenomenal because they're so enthusiastic. You know, whether that be from Alec right at the top, Alec Shepley, his reading groups are brilliant, and it's great to get an insight into his mind. And you've got, you know, the teaching staff are so diverse as well, you know, and they're all enthusiastic about what they bring to the table. And, you know, if I can replicate that and get somebody else enthusiastic about art, and, you know, as we were talking about earlier, it can be seen as quite pretentious and stuffy, but if you can break down those barriers and get more people just doing it, even in the community and things like that, like I joined in last summer with a project called Llangollen Massive Heat, which was run through the university, which links up with Ysgol Dinas Bran to, you know, to work on the Eisteddfod. And if I can get those kids inspired by something I'm doing, then it's fantastic. And showing that art can be fun. It doesn't have to be completely pretentious. It can be if you want it to be, but, you know, similarly, it can be fun. It can be something to be enjoyed by everyone.
I think looking at the chat, Aleto's put, no, sorry, I meant like a master's or something else to continue in this learning environment. So not just going off to do teacher training, but in terms of would you be considering a master's after year?
I'm already looking at it, because I don't want the learning to end. I'm enjoying it so much, the process, that I want to develop it further. You know, 3 years goes by in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely. I don't think there's many people that would turn their nose up at going back to being able to study at university again, or going back to the university days. Absolutely. So in terms of a master's program, are you thinking? I know that we've got some new master's programs coming up, like interdisciplinary studies, which is looking really interesting. Because I know they're trying to work with criminology and social work and things like that, which is really going to sort of underpin this arts health movement as well.
I think I've been looking as well, you know, sort of the curating and stuff like that, because there's something, you know, that it does interest me as well, because, you know, you've got to have that underpinning there to support the artists. Yeah,
absolutely.
But definitely anything that sort of can improve my practice as well is it'll be welcomed, you know. And again, it's that social aspect to it, you know, that I absolutely love, going in and being around like-minded people. Yeah, you take so much from it.
And just talking art, and I mean, conversations can go on for hours sometimes, and whether it's over a coffee or just in a corridor or a chat, I think that's been really missed since the lockdown, the pandemic. I know some of the fine artists have been into studios and have had that access to the studios, but certainly the digital artists of the school have sort of, I think, really struggled with not having that social interaction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've been fortunate in that we have been allowed back in the studios, obviously with meeting the criteria of socially distancing and being safe and everything, but we have been allowed back in the studios, and it's been such a relief. And, you know, all of us have said it's so nice to be back in that environment.
Yeah. I've said this before, but my favourite time of year is, one of my favourite times of year is the final show, because being the sort of digital side and doing animation and illustration and stuff like that, it's kind of, I don't get to see what the fine artists do, and the final show is my opportunity to go and have a look.
Yeah.
What that, especially if I've taught a student in foundation, and they've gone up through 3 years of fine art. It's brilliant to see that process, that journey come to an end with an exhibition at the end of the year. And this year it's going to be online. It's going to be a website. There's a couple of virtual. There was a virtual gallery last year and a virtual book as well. So I'm really hoping that COVID restrictions and everything else lets us get back in the building next year and start looking at the final show.
I'll be interested to see the final show this year, because there are some tremendous sort of talents there.
Absolutely.
And you know, they're very diverse in what they create as well. So I love going around and, you know, looking at what they're creating, because it's you know, each one's so different. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I'm already pestering people to join us on the stream so that we can see what they do, and then talks with Ali over in Fine Art to maybe get some footage or even stream some of the artwork that the final year students are doing, because I think that needs to be seen by as many people as possible. So some good stuff. So I got a list of questions in front of me that we'll try and rattle through as best we can. So if anyone in the chat does have any more questions, feel free to put them in there, and we will certainly and get those answered for you. So are there any reoccurring themes within your work?
I guess I always tend to transition back to sort of when I guess from a therapeutic level, if I'm feeling stressed or anything like that, I come back to animals, wildlife, nature. Like, you know, I'm visiting nature at the moment in my work in uni, although it would be from a very different sort of approach. Nature reclaiming architecture and stuff, but you know, there's some sort of familiarity about nature and something that's very comforting about it. I think, you know, for the same reason I like fishing, because, you know, you're at one with nature, and I think that's a theme that's overarching. You know, it's people, animals, and nature. They're the sort of foundations of what I do, really.
Electo's come back with it. Have you painted fish?
I have. Well, I've tried, and they are very difficult. Very, very difficult. But yeah, to get that natural flow of a fish, you know, in water, it is a difficult thing. But yeah, in answer to that, I have. But it's long since been discarded. It was a bit of a failure, but I will. But, I see that as a challenge now. I'll revisit that. I'm going to promise to revisit.
I think you should, and it's kind of you instantly went to painting fish on a canvas, and I my little brain went to actually painting on a fish. I was going to say that's cruel.
You bought it from Tesco or something.
Yeah, water-based paints. You should be okay. So. Rhubarb's put, what is the most unusual material you have ever used?
Crikey.
Some sort of food-based potato.
Well, yeah, I've used potato. Yeah, that would be Ali getting us to use potatoes, making houses out of potatoes. That was good fun. I guess like different things, like, you know, you can, when you try and find textures and things with using banding foam or, you know, hardware tools or, you know, different things like that.
It's always when I do lessons with the foundation, because the foundation is a bit of everything. It's all different arts together.
Yeah.
And I try and get them to do a little bit of introduction to animation, like persistence of vision and things like that. It's interesting when the fine art foundation students come back with like thaumatropes and phenakistoscopes and all that, as opposed to digital artists. Because I remember last year they just started sticking motors and all sorts to it, and then so it comes. You can see that difference of what, you know, materials that the different disciplines use. But in terms of the making houses out of potatoes, it was fun for you guys. But my base room's right opposite the corridor, and it stunk.
Oh yeah.
After a couple of weeks,
right.
Rotten potatoes knocking about everywhere.
Yeah, it wasn't the best once they started rotting a bit.
And Electo's put, did you have fissues with it? Fissues with painting fish. Yeah.
Absolutely.
The dad jokes are rife tonight, aren't they? It's kind of like, yeah. So one of the questions I've got listed down here about the techniques and processes that you're currently using, and you mentioned sculpting earlier on. So is that sculpting clay? And why you know, those kind of techniques? What are you using at the moment, and why are you using those?
To be honest, it's more of a joinery type approach that I'd use.
Okay.
I'd say sculpture. It's like it's in the broad sense of it, but I was just using a lot of wood. I found a disused chair in the uni and used that as the base frame to start building the cabinet, and then started adding wood things to that, and then making the wood look like it was part of the chair and things like that, and it kind of just sort of evolved naturally over the period of doing it. And yeah, so it's a different type of sculpture, but yeah, I've used clay as well. I did some Star Wars themed stuff last year with clay. I made pop darts, which pop darts made from Darth Vader.
Okay.
It was sort of a breakfast challenge that Ali had set us. Yeah, so you know,
So you're exploring sort of sculpture, but is that something that you think that you would continue doing, or are you always gravitating back to canvas, or which one would you like to choose eventually? Do you think, or is it still?
I think painting you know, that's in my soul. That's the sort of thing that draws me back is to paint. But it's not to say that I wouldn't do sculptures and stuff, you know, if the opportunity's there as a collaborative thing or something like that, or you know, there's a competition or commission, then yeah, I'd love to do it, you know, because I think art's all about the challenge.
Yeah.
You know, I love the process. The process is the exciting part for me. Is how do you navigate the process and get to a point where, you know, you've got something resembling what's in your mind.
Absolutely. And we've got Electo in the chat asking, have you done anything with large-scale mixing nature/industrial materials? Jump in with that because we've been talking sculptures.
The only thing I've really done is just something I played about with a few weeks ago. I think it is on the Instagram feed there, is in the men's toilets at university, there's a lot of scaffolding lying about.
Yeah, let's bring that, see if I can bring that in for you to see.
So I borrowed that from the gents. I put a live plant in the middle, and then I've strung lots of dead flowers off there. So again, it's about the life cycle, you know, that industrial feel with life and the death of the plant. So it's that full circle and regeneration sort of idea. And I just, you know, wanted to play about with that. I'd seen the scaffolding there a long time ago, and I'd always wanted to try and incorporate and use it for something, You know, even though I'm primarily about painting, I sort of wanted to do that sort of industrial type thing. You know, I saw it there and I saw it as an opportunity, and this was the perfect chance to use it, really.
So, look, when you go around and you see these things, what makes you pick up certain pieces? Why do you choose certain parts and to go in your sculpture?
I guess it's something that's innate. I guess it's something like, to me, it looked like a big version of Meccano, and I loved Meccano as a kid. But as an adult, I haven't really sort of been back there and explored it. So, art school's that wonderful place where you get to indulge the inner child, because I think kids are the best artists. They're free from any inhibitions, and if you can entertain that inner child in what you do, then you can't go far wrong from a creativity perspective. You know, less worrying about what the outcome is and more just doing it and seeing what it becomes is definitely the way to be creative, I think.
I couldn't agree more with you when it comes to the creative side of things and kids being creative. I've read some research, and I've actually think I put it in one of the talks that I do for the foundation, in terms of some tests that were done on kids of a young age. They tested those children of a certain age with a level of creativity, and then did it again later on in life. And as you get older, the creativity sort of dwindles or goes down. I don't know whether it's because you conform into school or conform into society or whatever else, but the levels of creativity drop as you get older. And the question is, how do you can keep that creativity and them creative juices flowing as you get older?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I see it in my own kids, you know, the stuff that they create or the ideas that they come out with are fantastic. You know, it's brilliantly inspiring to me. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, why didn't I think of that? You know, whereas I've got the techniques and years of actual painting and stuff behind me to try and implement the ideas, you know, it seems that part of your mind gets shut off because you are trying to conform.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that the kids give me ideas of what you can do, you know, because that's the key, I think, to keeping art fresh is the ideas.
Yeah, learning from that, isn't it? Learning from your kids and kids around you and stuff, and how they play, and their imagination is just, well, it's just immense, isn't it? I suppose they see in this world for the first time, this big, huge space, and their mind just goes.
No inhibitions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how another question for you off the list: how important is scale in your work?
Yeah, I guess it is always at the forefront of my mind. I tend to like working on a larger scale these days. I mean, the one I'm doing tonight, I've kept to a relatively small scale. One, because it is going in the house somewhere. Two, because you know, I want to show a bit of process and actually get a bit done, because I'm not the fastest painter in the world. As I say, I like to layer upon layer. But I do like working on bigger scale. Like the Kurt Cobain piece is probably the biggest painting I've done sort of portrait wise or so far, and I loved it because you have to stand back from it all the time and explore, you know, how to use colour effectively. You know, what you're seeing close up to the canvas isn't necessarily what you're seeing further away, and I kind of like that with when I've seen larger paintings in person as well. Like we were talking earlier about the difference between online and seeing them in person, because you think, how is that so you know, ultra realistic with some pieces, and then you look at them close up and they're quite pixelated almost, but they've done that so at a distance they do look ultra realistic, and it's tremendous.
There is a word for that. I think it was coined by Picasso, if I'm not mistaken. And I find it out, I remember it, and then it's gone, it's forgotten. I can never remember what that process is called, because we use it all the time when we do concept art.
Yeah.
Of having that sort of, and it's been able to get down ideas really quickly that work on screen, that from a distance look like it's a perfect landscape, but up close it's marks.
Yeah.
And brush strokes and that. But there is a term for it, and if anyone in the chat knows what that term is, please put it in. I'll find out what it is again, and I guarantee you within an hour I've forgotten. I need to like get it written on my hand permanently or something, because it's something I always refer to. Yeah. So, what motivates you when it comes to your art, or painting, or sculpting, or anything really?
I guess it's the continual striving for improvement. To be a better artist than I was yesterday, you know, and to because the importance of it to me from a mental standpoint is huge, because it's so good for my mental health.
Yeah.
And it's hugely enjoyable. But I also want to see some sort of improvement. I want to, you know, become better at what I'm doing. I want to see how I can further myself, and I guess improve techniques. And yeah, it's learning. I've got this real hunger to sort of learn, and I think with art, it's a limitless process. You can always be learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think, even now, sort of, I've been teaching since 2007. So I don't even want to count that up, because it just makes me feel old. And even daily, you learn something new when you're working with art, and I think that's what for me keeps me coming back to it. It's just that constant learning process, constantly learning something new, or wanting to learn something new.
Yeah, it is a buzz when you take something new away, because, you know, if you've been working at doing stuff for so long, you know, it can become commonplace, and, you know, you get stuck in a rut or whatever. And that moment where you spark and create something new, it sort of reinvigorates you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just something about it, isn't it? When it just something kicks off, an idea kicks off, and you just got to put it down. So if you're out and about, you're doing football on the weekend, or even in the middle of the night, what happens when you get an idea or anything else? Do you keep it in a sketchbook? Do you jot it down quick? Or do you just remember it? Or
I go straight to notes on my iPhone. For convenience sake, I'll jot it down in there, because I have got the worst memory in the world. My wife Kerry will testify to that, I'm sure. But I'm terrible for remembering things, so I have to make a note of something and jot it down, and to make sure it sort of sticks.
Do you keep a sketchbook or anything like that, or?
I do keep. I say I do, but I keep many different sketchbooks rather than working on one at a time. I just pick the closest thing to hand, and I think that's where I'd like to go down the digital path and keep a digital sketchbook, because, you know, it's kind of all in one place and it's less clutter, because I'm not the most organised person in the world. I really see the benefits in that, you know, in that you can test palettes out, you can make sketches and stuff, and then just keep them there for future reference, whereas, you know, books get lost and different things. So, you know, the digital aspect really does appeal to me.
Because there's loads of apps that you can get, like the Moleskine app as well, so you can actually have a Moleskine sketchbook.
Yeah.
And you have multiple sketchbooks to do various different things, so you can sort of theme them if you wanted to. It's kind of a nice... And it's something I always bang on to students about, keeping a sketchbook. And the Moleskine sketchbook's like the coffee shop sketchbook, I always call it, that you can just go and sit somewhere, whether it's on a bench or it's in a coffee shop or it's on a train or whatever, and you can just sketch. You know, something nice about doing that. Winston's put in the chat, do you like the finish smooth or do you like texture?
It's an interesting one, Winston. I like texture, but my process tends to leave the finish smooth. I'm constantly striving to not overwork things and leave that texture there more. And that is something, you know, consciously I am going to work towards, leaving more texture, especially as I move forward with portraits in my negotiated studies next year. I want to impart more texture to tell the story rather than, like, you know, a polished image like I've done with Kurt Cobain. I'd rather try and tell the story of the character through textures and things like that. So, aesthetically, I do like texture, but I guess the perfectionist in me that I'm trying to let go likes to refine things so it ends up becoming smooth. So I guess that is one of my learning goals, really, is to sort of keep more texture in the work.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? There was a question I think earlier on, Alecto, have you? It was, when do you know when a painting's finished? I think we missed that question before, or we may have answered it, but it's kind of like, what, you keep working it and working it, but when do you actually know that it's finished? It's kind of,
again, it can be sometimes it's a joint decision in that I'll ask the people around me. People like Winston are great at saying, "Yeah, leave something alone if you're working it too much." But I think as time's gone on, as I've gone a bit older, got a few more greys, I tend to just naturally feel when something's coming to a conclusion, and I don't want to overwork something or take it much further. I've left the Kurt Cobain piece knowing that it's not finished, but at the time, I think I was so consumed by it. If I'd carried on working on it, I'd have made it worse. But I know if I come back fresh at it in a month or so, I'll hit it with a new sort of vigor, and then it'll turn into the painting that it has the potential to be.
So, in terms of your work evolving, is that how your work's evolved over time? Is that knowing when something's finished, or not knowing, or leaving it, or coming back to it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that just comes with it comes with the confidence, I guess, to know when something's done, and to just be at ease with not trying to do that extra little thing or an extra thing here or there. And that is something that's got a lot easier as I've got older. I think I'm just more content with, the process, and just feeling having a sort of natural feeling of when something's come to a close, rather than actually being dictated by what I'm seeing. More the feel that I get, when I feel I can't really add anything. That's gonna make the painting stand out, or there aren't any highlights that I can look to add. I think that I get a feeling of, right now it's the time to stop.
So along your journey throughout learning this stuff and learning when to stop and all that sort of stuff, has there been any surprises along the way?
I think the biggest surprise was for me when I managed to let go of the feeling of worrying about what people would see. And I guess that was when I was at Combat Stress. I was just making art for the joy of making it, and it was incidental if it looked good or whether people liked it or not. And it felt like a really freeing sort of moment, and it felt really nice to actually just enjoy art for the process rather than the final outcome. And I think I'd always been consumed by the final outcome of things, because I think in the old education system that I came through, that was what it was. You had to be concerned about what the end goal was, whereas it's very much process driven these days, and that you document the process of what you're making, and that's taken into consideration, and not always the what the outcome is. It's the journey.
Because that's something that a lot of artists struggle with. There's a lot of young level 4 artists that come in and they do stuff and they hide it. They hide their work, and I think that's what I mentioned the other day in a lesson that we've struggled with online classes, is that there's a lot of work that students just hide because they fear that it's not good enough, or they fear that someone might judge them or whatever else, and just trying to get them to jump over that barrier and be like, this is me, this is what I do, love it or hate it, here I am. Being able to go around in the classroom and go, well, what's that there that you've just moved, or what's in that sketchbook, and things like that. You find so many little nuggets that students just hide work, and
Yeah,
it's unfortunate.
absolutely.
And I
And
think that
I was that person for the longest time. I'd throw away sketches because
yeah,
I didn't like them. It was all about making a good final piece, and
hmm
I'd throw away the sketches because I was embarrassed by them.
yeah.
But now, they're an integral part of what I do.
And it gives you that, it does give you that journey as well. So that's one thing that I keep going back to these Moleskine sketchbooks, is that I always go for the bound sketchbook rather than the ring bound, so that you don't rip pages out,
Yeah,
and you can see your journey from page one to the very end and what it looks like, and that process and that thing. So in terms of that's just really inspiring that you were able to do that, and through the process that you did it, and you were able to sort of start showing off what your work. And again, I think between you and Winston, you two have been the sort of easiest people I could get on to do the Twitch stream. You've just gone, yeah, I'll do that. So it's been really good. So has there been any bad surprises along the way of this journey?
I wouldn't say that there's any bad surprises in that, you just got, I think, when you talk about me and Winston, we're at a stage of life where, we're a bit older, and we view things slightly differently. So, any experience is a good experience, whether it turned out the way you wanted it to or not. A piece of art that's gone wrong is a piece of art you can learn from. So I haven't really had bad experiences, just good learning experiences.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. Electo in the chat's put, your love for what you do is really inspiring. And I think
I really appreciate that, because I do wonder sometimes if it translates. Because I do love it, but you do, as an artist, wonder sometimes, does it actually translate in what I'm doing or how I'm talking about it? So that's nice to hear.
So, and in terms of your journey and your process, has there been challenges along the way? Or what are those challenges?
I guess, the challenges are, when you're struggling to find time or sometimes motivation to do things. It's just like real world problems like anybody faces. You're always going to have that lull where you're not feeling so creative. And I mean, well, in the last semester, I had this very problem in that I'd come off a period of being really creative, really inspired, and then we had to finish early at Christmas because the schools were closed.
Yeah.
And then I got COVID in January, and it sort of stopped my momentum and my progress, and I felt a bit deflated by it. But I sort of went back in the studio when I could, once I'd recovered, and I started working on the Kurt Cobain piece, which was nothing to do with my uni work, but purely just to be doing something, in the hope that it would spark that sort of creativity again. Unfortunately, it did. And I think, that's just something I've learned with age, just be doing something rather than nothing, even if it's not related to the actual university work. It's just important that I'm creating and that I push myself to do it.
Yeah. It is, I mean, absolutely inspiring. It's coming through on the chat as well. Like, Kismanachos put, your passion is definitely translating. You come across that you want others to find the same joy from your painting that you feel. And Funkatron's put, why that's looking great.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's what I want. I want people to enjoy art. I think, that's what the process is about for me. That's what art's about. It's about enjoyment,
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is, people that are held in high regard and things like that. But, at the end of the day, the common thread that everyone has is they do it because they enjoy it. And no matter what level you're at, art can be enjoyed by anyone. It doesn't matter what age you come into it at or whatever,
Absolutely. Well, you can see that sheer joy from kids picking up pencils and paints and drawing on your walls and stuff, and then sort
absolutely.
of keeping that going. It's something that people tend to gravitate towards, and we've talked about this before in the streams about lockdown and stuff, and people gravitating back towards arts because they were talking about artists not being, it's one of the first jobs to go and everything else, but art is absolutely everywhere. It's in everything that you use, whether it's a product that's been designed, whether it's a packaging, or you see a poster on a wall, or it's been inspired by some artist. Or
Well, this is it. Artists are the true historians. If it wasn't for artists, we wouldn't know a lot of history.
absolutely.
And through the pandemic, the artist reactions to the coronavirus, that'll endure, and that'll inform the generations to come of what it actually was to live through the pandemic. So we play an important role, and I think it's not to be understated. The role that is there in society for artists, and and that can be anyone. I don't mean anyone that's got it doesn't have to be somebody with a formal background or an education in art. It can be anyone that feels moved to pick up a pen, pencil, anything. They're all documenting something that's personal to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the lockdown there. I mean, I was quite surprised at how many celebrities, TV presenters, singers are artists.
Yeah.
I've just, Grayson Perry puts the show on a Friday night, and he invites all sorts of different celebrity artists in there, from Noel Fielding to Harry Hill, Keith Lemon, Ricky Wilson. And the biggest shocker for me was Vic Reeves. I didn't know he was a painter.
Reeves, yeah.
But because he goes under his actual name,
Jim Wah,
yeah. So and it's. Have you watched any of those programs since lockdown, or?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. The most I tend to watch these days is YouTube, because the kids have control of the TV. As a parent, you'll be familiar with it. But yeah, when I do get those opportunities, I do like to do the catch-up thing and watch them, and I find them thoroughly interesting. I love the Sky programs, in particular Sky Arts.
Yeah.
There's some real gems on there. Whether it be Sky Portrait Artist of the Year, or whether it be looking back as a retrospective of well-known artists, I think they do a really good job of promoting the arts.
Because I was quite surprised at how many sort of making shows started appearing as well. So like Keith Lemon hosted a show that was making stuff. He started a YouTube channel as well, where he creates movie memorabilia and figures from like bubble wrap and tape, and they look like a plastic toy that you bought from the shop. It's mad when you think.
There'll be people out there that say they're jumping on a bandwagon to promote themselves.
Yeah.
I don't care. I think it's fantastic that they're just bringing people to art that wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity to get involved in it. I think it can only be a good thing. And I think that's what I love about the social media sort of revolution as well. Is it's almost reclaiming it back for your average person, and they can decide what they think good art is, rather than what the critics depict good art is.
Yeah, because we would have never have been doing this on Twitch had it not been for the lockdown, and seeing all these different social media channels, and because Twitch was prominently esports and games, and that's all I ever thought it was when I was teaching games and stuff. It was all just games, and then obviously over the pandemic and everything else, it's boomed with art and fitness and everything else. And that's another reason, that's kind of where this came from. Sharing this art, sharing the process, and lifting the veil on what artists do. Electo's put, artists are the true historians. So true. So Winston's asked, what inspires you away from art, music, etc.?
Yeah, you know what? That it's almost a loaded question in itself. It's great in that I think music, definitely, I think that is an art in itself. We're all artists, whether you can create something visually, or I admire musicians hugely. I'm very eclectic in the sort of music I listen to. You know, I mean, at the moment I'm listening to a lot of Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know, I said of like Nirvana, Stone Roses have always been a firm favourite of mine, and all the indie scene.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'll listen to a lot of Marvin Gaye as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've done a portrait of Marvin Gaye literally because I was listening to him so much, and you know, what he sang about is so relevant to what's happening in the world at the moment. You know, especially with the Black Lives Movement and things like that. You know, you could put Marvin Gaye right now in back into society, and he's relevant today as he was initially when he was writing the songs. You know, it's incredible. And I think, yeah, things like music. I love music when I'm away from the easel. I love music when I'm at the easel. It's always been a huge passion. You know, it's how I recall life. You know, where was I when this song was out, sort of thing. You know, otherwise I wouldn't remember what year it was.
The soundtrack of your life, as they call it.
Absolutely, yeah. I recall things through music. Yeah, you know, what was I doing in that year? I have to think what sort of was out at the time. You know, and that's kind of how I chart time.
So, outside of art and music, is there anything else that inspires you?
Yeah, I guess there's lots of stuff that inspires me. You know, like I say, I like to go fishing, but not necessarily that I'm a great angler. It's more to be at one with nature. I like going down the river and just being around natural things. I find it very calming, very inspiring. And then doing the kids coaching football, you know, I find that so rewarding.
Yeah.
From the point of view where the kids constantly surprise you with just how knowledgeable and how much you can learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I'm teaching them, but at the same time, I'm getting so much back in return. It's, you know, it's a dual thing really, where you get a lot back. You get as much as you give.
Absolutely, that sounds brilliant. That you're getting so much inspiration from so many different sources. In Funkatron's put, I like to throw on some Biffy Clyro when I'm drawing and creating.
Oh yeah, Biffy and the Foos. Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm. I tend to find that when I'm doing stuff, the heavier the music, the more my brain focuses on it. It's weird.
Yeah, and I guess as well, the type of music I listen to is, you know, dictates the sort of thing I'm doing. If I'm trying to look to do a more dark and somber piece, you know, it will be heavier music. You know, I think that, you know, there's no more inspirational person in the world. You know, I think, you know, when you do this imaginary scenario, who would you sit down with? You know, current living stuff like that. You know, Dave Grohl. I don't think there's anybody more inspiring in the world at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a phenomenal artist and a phenomenal story as well of where he came from and stuff, and how he's got to where he is now and things he's done to change.
I admired a comment he made about American Idol a few years ago, and it stays true towards all of the arts.
Yeah.
It goes, you know, don't look to go on programs like that to be judged and seek validation off people that don't know how to sing or play music themselves. He goes, be prepared to go into a garage and suck hard. He goes, that's how a band called Nirvana started, in a garage playing rubbish music really loud. And you know what? He's humble, but he's so right.
Absolutely.
You know, don't worry about what other people think you're creating, you know, or should be creating. Just do what you know makes you happy, and people will like it if it's good.
I like that. Do more what makes you happy.
Yeah,
that's good. What Electors, but what's your favourite Stone Roses song?
Ooh, All Across the Sands.
Funkatron's put Only Revelations, but I think that's to do with the Biffy Clyro. And then Electors put Dave Grohl is a god.
Yeah.
Dave Grohl is a god, and then they've put so is Dave Grohl. Kiss Macho, that's my favourite quote of his too. You know, I think music just it's the soundtrack of your life, isn't it? It just touches you so in some way that's kind of like just
absolutely, and
drives you forward and stuff.
It's that sentiment of in society we're always looking for validation when you should just be enjoying whatever it is you're doing. I guess it's kind of almost like the mindfulness movement. Just enjoy what you're doing in the here and now, and don't be concerned of what, you know, other people are doing or thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of your practice and stuff, do you ever collaborate with your peers or other artists?
I want to do a lot more of it. I mean, we did, as I said, last summer we did Llangollen Massive Heat, where it was great because it was a much needed thing at the time for everyone, I think, where we were going through the pandemic and uni had come to a finish for the summer, and it was just great to meet up, albeit on Zoom, but with familiar faces, and have a chat and talk about where we were going creatively speaking, and just to see how each other were and stuff like that, and you know, and have ideas together. So, you know, that is something I'm looking forward to getting back to this summer as well, and hopefully working with the children from Ysgol Dinas Bran. And in the studio, you know, when I was going through my role recently, I started also working with Ffion Griffiths in the studio on some of her work, you know, where we were chopping up a BMX, you know, so she can make audio art, and you know, so it goes along with the visual and stuff. And I found that very inspiring, and I learned a lot from Ffion, because you know, that's not how I approach art, but there's huge merits to it, and it's a great way of thinking, and you know, it gets you thinking more.
So is Ffion at the same level as you, or is she year above or year below?
Yeah, Fion's the same level. She's level 5. Hopefully, she'll do a Twitch stream at some point as well. I think we're working on that. Because she is she's a phenomenally inspiring person and artist, to be honest. She's, like I say, you know, having Winston around, who we saw last week, Ffion, Lorna McDines, you know, Izzy Evans, who's now in the first year, and I think these people, I feel really fortunate to have them around, because they're pushing us all the time, because they're so inspirational in what they're doing. It's a pleasure to be around them, and you know, and collaboratively speaking, I would be happy to collaborate with them all.
So do you get to integrate with other levels as well, or is it just level 5?
As I say, you've got Izzy, who's in the first year. She shares a studio space with us, and you know, what she's doing is fantastic. I mean, her productivity level is off the charts, and it lights a fire under you to get you producing and stuff like that. And we're more than happy. You know, I'll go and talk to the level 6 students. They're working on their final stuff at the moment, so there's not so much collaboration going on, but I like to see what they're doing, you know, and understand the processes they're going through, and support what they're doing as well, you know, because we're always looking to sort of show support for each other, you know, because we're all the same community. And yeah, I just, you know, although I don't necessarily collaborate with the level 6 students in the sense that we create stuff together, you know, I'd like to think we collaboratively sort of further each other's thinking and work by going and taking a look at each other's works, and you know, we all talk to each other, and that's the thing people don't necessarily see or understand, is just how open a place it is. With it not being the biggest art school in the world, we all know each other, whether it be from level 4 through to, you know, level 6, and we're all comfortable to walk into each other's studio, ask about the work, talk to each other, just sit down and have a chat. It's great, and it's very inspiring in itself, that is. And you know, we're lucky in that it's not a huge institution, that you don't get lost among a million faces. You know, it allows you to have your own identity and collaborate and learn so much from all those around you as well.
It is one of them. I always say it's like the best kept secret, because it's such a small place, and we've created such great stuff. I mean, not I say we, not me, the students, and it's like I said, that's why we want to try and get it. That's what. Sorry.
As good as the tutors that are there as well, you know, and wouldn't sell yourself short.
So I love that idea of different levels talking to each other, and the ones that have gone through the process, talking to the lower levels and giving inspiration and building that whole community, because then that spills out then into the town, into working life. You build your network, your connections, and collaborations just come, and that's what I feel sort of just inspires more art, more creativity.
Yeah, there's definite openness there, you know, and people are willing to share. There's no sort of hidden secrets to how somebody does something, or, you know, like this mystical thing that you sometimes see in the art world where things are very cloak and dagger. It's a secret how I came up with it, you know, that's my secret recipe. But there's none of that, and it's really refreshing.
So, I mean, we've talked quite a bit about COVID and pandemic. Has that had any impact on your practice?
I guess, yeah. In the interruptions, you know, like I was saying before, I was really in a flow before Christmas where I was really productive, and it kind of came to a stop, and it was hard to pick up that momentum again. And in that sense, yeah, it did have an impact. But generally, on the whole, I think it's been quite an inspiring time to be an artist, because times are so unusual and so out of the ordinary. You're seeing things you wouldn't ordinarily see, and you're having to adapt. And, you know, that makes for a good artist experience and in itself, I think.
Being able to adapt to your surroundings and
I think,
what's
you know,
happening.
If you'd have told me 12 months ago we'd be learning on Microsoft Teams, I'd have laughed at you. But, you know, if you adapt and it's what you do, and in a way it works.
Or talking to me via Zoom, being broadcast across the world.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think, you know, it's got us to embrace things, and, you know, there will be positives to come from it, no doubt, that will be taken forward. Can you substitute being taught in the studio? Probably not, but you can enhance that with the stuff that we have had to learn through this pandemic. So, you know, there are benefits to it. You can take positives from it, definitely.
I suppose now it's going to open up opportunities, I suppose, for people who might not have got online or gone via Twitch or via Zoom or whatever else to collaborate with people from other countries. You know, cultural influences now and sort of things like that.
Hugely. I think, you know, the boundaries have sort of just been sort of dropped, really, and it's really sort of encouraging, you know, with this whole launch of the NFT and different things. You know, it's really interesting to see the art world shift and change, and it's, you know, it is kind of interesting. It's a good time to be alive and involved in it all.
You said NFT. There might be something that we have to sort of now address. So can you explain to us what NFT is for the viewers that are not sure what that is? Amy mentioned it on Saturday when we were talking. But if you can let us know what you think.
I mean, NFT it stands for non-fungible token.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's owning the digital rights to a piece of art. So somebody can create the art and put it into the digital world, and then they can auction the right to own the intellectual property of that. So, I mean, this whole ways it's limitless. It seems, you know, it started with a guy, Mike Winkelmann, who really sort of took off with it. A guy goes by the name of Beeplecrap. When his first 5,000, which is basically the first 5,000 posts he'd made on Instagram, all combined into one image, and it sold for millions. But it was all sort of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So it can be volatile, and it remains to be seen how successful it'll be long term. But there's huge potential with it, and it's a whole new area that's shaking up the art world. And as I've been following it, it seems to be opening other avenues as well. Now there's a film director I'm a huge fan of, Kevin Smith. He's actually making a film and he's selling that as an NFT.
Wow. Okay.
So I wouldn't have thought that possible, but
it's amazing what you can sell nowadays. I mean, the guy who created Twitter, the name escapes me, but he sold his first tweet for an astronomical fee. How do you sell a tweet? It's kind of like what you get in the post, a little certificate with a picture of your tweet on it. Like, I don't know.
It's like owning a star.
Yeah.
You got a certificate saying you own it. Will you ever see it? No, but you know it's yours.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, what they do. Kiss My Artichoke's put in the chat. Do you mean Twitch, not Zoom? That's going back. I said about you talking to me via Zoom.
Yeah.
To lift the lid on what we're doing right now, I am beamed right into Kieran's home via the power of Zoom, and then I throw that through OBS, the Open Broadcast software, and then I stream it to Twitch. It's all very sort of technical through various different mediums and methods and stuff. It's taken a while to get to this point. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think it's worked really well tonight. We have been streaming now for coming up to 2 hours. We got 6 minutes off 2 hours.
Wow.
So if anyone's got any last minute questions in the chat, then certainly fire them in. We're conscious that you might need to take a break soon. So how long do you reckon it would take you now to complete this piece?
I'll probably say, I reckon it'd probably take at least another sort of 4 hours, possibly somewhere between 4 and 6 hours till it's completed. Just on the basis I need to go into the nose area, the mouth, eyes, and just sort of refine those elements of it and pull it all together at the end. I'll put the details in those areas, and then I'll adjust the other areas to sort of make it all sort of fit as one image.
There's a few comments coming in now saying, Kiss My Artichokes, but technical, my bad. I don't even know how it works. It's I'm just shocked that it does. So it is like, we did try restream when we first started, so we could try and stream out to Twitter and YouTube at the same time. But it was literally that moment I pressed the button and the computer said no. And that was just like, oh no, it's all going, we're breaking, we're going down. So we quickly had to switch to Twitch. So yeah. Alexis put, really enjoyed this, thank you. And Kiss My Artichoke, will you post it on Instagram when you finish?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right,
No doubt.
We'll be absolutely looking forward to that. And then it'd be nice to see it on the wall as well. Looking forward to that. Kiss My Artichoke's put, it's looking great and thank you for doing the stream. Winston's put, thank you very much, Kieran and Steve. So we really appreciate you doing this, Kieran. It's been
it's been a pleasure.
Fantastic stream.
Well,
it's one of them things where you don't even realise the time's gone. You start asking a couple of questions. Next minute, it's 2 hours in. And it's kind of, it's time for bed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if anyone is in the chat and you haven't followed us already, then certainly throw us a follow and check us out the next time we stream. We will be back next week with Hannah from Illustration, doing some digital art next week. Then we've got another fine artist on Wednesday, so we've got two next week, two streams. Because there's no Saturday stream this week. So any last minute things you wanna tell us about? We have a quick look at your Instagram before we hit the two hours again. So I'm always interested to see what people post on Instagram. Because this is the post I stole off your Instagram earlier on to put on our Instagram to promote it.
Yeah, Howard Marks. Yeah, again, that was to do with the Llangollen Massive Heat. So that was a create your own legend sort of thing. You know, I was just using an artistic license, if you will, to try and incorporate Howard Marks. You know, it was a great thing to try and tie him in with Llangollen, and it was a good fun piece to do.
And then you've got a mixed media piece as well there with Mr. Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump, and you know, I was kind of doing the image of how he sees himself, you know, as the Messiah.
It's interesting. It's really good. So some good stuff.
And the Afghan rug thing there was. I didn't realise I struggled. I came across imagery of real Afghan rugs, and they were incorporating drones and stuff that were happening in their daily life.
Wow. Yeah.
And I found it massively interesting because we were using the theme of Time magazine last year, and I picked up on the political satire sort of thing of it, and sort of playing with who's really good or who's bad and stuff like that. So that's where that piece came from. It was quite enjoyable.
Then you've got an extension of the previous mixed media study on wood panel. It's interesting the results you get from that, from using wood, isn't it, in canvas and stuff.
Yeah, I quite like working on wooden panel because there's no giving it, so you can really sort of push and get into it. But I've used on there as well stencils and airbrush, you know, so just trying to use different things and printmaking on it as well.
It's fantastic. That eye looks brilliant. It's really good. Really good. Cool. Again, thank you so much for doing this stream. We've got a couple of things coming in. Electo's put love the Afghan wool one, very clever. Kiss My Archokes put Kieran needs to pick a raid word. So I don't know if you have seen the streams before or don't know much about Twitch or anything like that, but the etiquette is that if we've got viewers, then we need to send those viewers off and raid another channel. So what I tend to do is ask people in the chat or the artists to pick a random word, so that when then people go off to the other channel, they just spam their chat with that word, and then it just shares more sort of sharing followers, content, all that sort of stuff. So
I guess it's only fitting then I'd choose Jerusalem Artichoke.
Jerusalem Artichoke. Who's going to be able to spell that? That's
your friend.
We did one on Saturday, and someone came up with binoculars, and I was like, "How are we going to spell that?" So, Jerusalem Artichoke. There we go. I knew we shouldn't have an artist for a raid word. So I'm just looking who we are following right now that we can jump in their stream, and we will just get past any adverts, just make sure there's no adverts in there. But there's somebody at the moment doing a banner for the winner of Pokken Tournament Players Cup who we are following. So fan art. So unless anyone's got any other suggestions, Kiss My Archokes put I'm dyslexic, so I think it might just have to be the raid emote. So we'll throw up the thank you screen in a second and the end screen, and then we will hit up a raid, and we will see you next week for next week's stream. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, Kieran, for being with us. And it's been amazing. It's been inspiring as always, like all the artists to come on. Electo's put Jerusalem Artichoke in the chat with a question mark. I don't know whether that's for people to copy and paste, or they've just got overexcited before we've hit the raid. So right, let's do this. Thank you again, Kieran, and we'll see you soon.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.